Hi everyone, welcome to the marking session of meeting 14. For meeting 14, we have 4 questions. First, what are the advantages and disadvantages of symmetric and asymmetric encryption? Number 2, does symmetric and asymmetric encryption have an exclusive relationship, or can they be used together? Number 3, what is the difference between a message digest and encryption? Why is encryption necessary if we already have a digest? And number 4, how can security and efficiency both be secured during communication? Before we answer the questions, let's first review the process of applying for a certificate. First, the applicant, which is the web server, wants to apply for a certificate. They would first generate a private key and a public key. They keep the private key for themselves, and they put the public key along with some identifying information together to generate a CSR file. The identification information includes things such as the URL and phone number, email, name, address, things like that to prove the identity. After they generated the CSR file, they send it to the certificate authority, the CA. The CA also generates its own pair of private key and public keys. It uses the private key to encrypt the message digest of the CSR file and send that along with the original CSR file back to the applicant. You might be wondering where the public key for this private key is. It's inside the browser of our computers. When we have our computer, it comes with a bunch of public keys for CAs that are trusted. So that's where the public key is. After the generated signed certificate is sent to the applicant, the process is finished and the applicant now has a signed certificate. Next, let's review the process after the certificate. So first, the CA issues the certificate to the server, and then the client, which is us, using the web browser, we want to access the server. So we request identification to see if the server is reliable. The server sends the certificate to us along with the public key. So we now have the certificate. We want to know if the certificate is trustworthy, so whether the CA can be trusted. We test that by using the public key already installed in our browser to check the hash value of the certificate. So we generate our own hash value of the certificate and compare it with the decrypted hash value that the server sent to us along with the certificate. If the 2 hash values are the same, then we know that the CA can be trusted. And then we can trust the server as well. So now we trust everything. The client, the web browser, sends the encrypted session key to the server. This encrypted session key is the key for symmetric encryption that we will use for our future communications. After the server received the session key, it acknowledges it by saying like OK and sends a message. After both parties have the session key, then all of the data can now be encrypted with the session key. So like when we're visiting the website, if we click a button or we load information, all of it is encrypted with a session key. And this changes every few minutes or every time we refresh the page. So now everything is secure and we can safely visit the website. That's the whole process. Now let's answer the questions. Number 1, for symmetric encryption, its advantages are it's fast. It's relatively faster. The disadvantages is not that safe. So it can be cracked relatively more easily. That's why for the symmetric encryption between our browser and the server, they change the key every few minutes. For asymmetric encryption, its advantage is that it's a lot safer. Disadvantage is that it's relatively slower. It's not like it's that slow, but it's slower. So if there's a huge amount of information, then it would be better to use symmetric. For number 2, no, they don't have an exclusive relationship. They can be used together. In our example, we use the asymmetric encryption to decide on the key for the symmetric encryption. And then we use the symmetric encryption for future contacts. What's the difference between a message digest and encryption? The message digest is used to verify the completeness of a message, while encryption is used to hide the information. When we find the message digest, we can't use the message digest to find the original information, but if we have a ciphertext, we can find the original information. Why is encryption necessary if we already have a digest? Because the purpose of a digest is different from the purpose of encryption. So if we want to send a message and make sure it's a hidden message, then we would use encryption. But if we don't care whether or not other people can see the message and we just want to verify that it's the right message, then we use a digest. Number 4, how can security and efficiency both be ensured during communication? We use both symmetric and asymmetric encryption together. Basically, in this picture, the places where it has the most information being exchanged is in step 5 and step 7. So in step 5, the client sends the encrypted session key. Because the session key is not that big, that means it will be efficient to send it. So for step 5, we want to ensure the safety. So that's why we use asymmetric encryption, which is RSA in number 5. But in step 7, the data that is sent between the browser and the server is a lot. That means that we need to focus on making it more efficient. So in step 7, we would use symmetric encryption. So for different steps, we use different things to make sure that it is both efficient and safe. So that's the answer for number 4. Let's start marking the homework. First is Brian's. Your answers are all correct. For the last line, you said that you think encryption is still necessary because we learn it before we learn how to digest. That's true. Encryption is completely necessary. We use it to conceal the plaintext, like you said over here. And there isn't any reason why it's not necessary. But it's not because we learn it before we learn how to digest. There are two different things, so they can be used together, but it's not like one of them is not necessary. Thank you for teaching me Python. I really enjoyed your class. Thank you. I enjoyed teaching you as well. Next is Ellie's. Good job. All of your answers are correct. If you want to see further explanations, you can watch the beginning of this video, but I think you answered everything well. This is another document that you sent, but it's not that clear, so I marked the other one. The other worksheet is correct. Next is Richard's. All of your answers are correct and really well written. You included everything, so good job. Next is Adrian's. For number 1, they're mostly correct except for this one. It's not extremely slow, just slower. Number 2 is correct. Number 3 is correct too. But make sure you know that hash can only ensure the completeness of data but cannot be decrypted to find the plain text. Encrypting the message does make it more secure. Yes. But hash is not meant for making it secure. It's meant for ensuring the completeness. For number 4, this isn't the answer to the question. It asks how to ensure both security and efficiency. So we would need to use symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption together. In different parts of the communication, we would use different types of encryption. So if you want to see further explanation, you can look at the beginning of the video. So Brian is for number 11. So for number 11, it's the methods to see whether two numbers are coprime. For all of the questions, they're correct. Good job. Next is Gary's. Yep. Convert information into a string and converts information into a code. That's right. For the digest, we want to make sure the information is complete. For encryption, we want to hide the information. Number 4 is correct too. All of your answers are correct. Good job. Next is Grace's. Symmetric encryption is fast and not so secure. Asymmetric is secure but slower. Yes. Yeah, they can be used together. We rely on digital signature for message digest. The digest can be faked, so you should rely on digital signature to make sure it's correct. Yes, that's true. The message digest is used to verify the completeness of the message, while the encryption is used to hide the message. So encryption is necessary when we want to make sure the message is not seen by anyone else. But yes, the encryption can also be used to make a digital signature for the digest. Number 4 can be ensured by using asymmetric and symmetric encryption. That's right. Good job. You answered the questions well. Next is Jesse's. Symmetric encryption is fast and efficient for large groups of data. Disadvantage is that need to keep the key a secret. Disadvantage because you might need the key to be moved around to different locations. Yes, that's true. It's less secure. It's really hard to use symmetric encryption for a long time and have nobody crack it because it's easy to crack. So the disadvantage is that it's not secure. An advantage to asymmetric encryption is that it allows authentication to be able to be verified by a sender. A disadvantage is that it is a slow process, so it's not really ideal for large amounts of data. Yes, that's right. So advantage for asymmetric encryption is it's safer, and disadvantage is that it's slower. Yes, number 2 is correct. Number 3 is correct too. Encryption is necessary even if we already have a digest, because sometimes we want to make sure no one sees the message. then in that case, we would encrypt the message. The digest is used when we're okay with other people seeing the message. We just want to make sure it's complete and correct. Number 4 is correct. Good job. Next is Joey's. For symmetric, it's faster to run but easier to crack. Asymmetric is slower but harder to crack. Yes, that's right. Number 2 is right. This is asymmetric, right? For number 3, the difference between a digest and encryption is that digest is used to verify the completeness of a message, while encryption is used to hide the message. We use it under different circumstances, so that's why they're both necessary. If we want to make sure no one sees the message, we use encryption. If we want to just verify that we have the right message, we use digest. You can also look at the beginning of the video, where I explain it more thoroughly. For number 4, we use both asymmetric and symmetric encryption to ensure security and efficiency. So in different steps of the process, we use different types of encryption. If it has a lot of information overload, then we use symmetric encryption to make it faster. But if it's just a small piece of information but really important, then we would use asymmetric encryption to make it more safe. I also explained number 4 in the beginning of the video. Next is Williams. Number 14. Advantages of symmetric encryption. It's fast, yeah. Disadvantages, it's not so secure. When stolen, all data can be seen all over the internet, yeah. Advantages of asymmetric encryption. It's a lot more secure than symmetric encryption, yep. Disadvantages, it's slower than symmetric encryption, yep. For number 2, symmetric and asymmetric do not have an exclusive relationship. Exclusive relationship means that they can't be used together, but they can be. That's how they ensure all parts of the communication goes well. So it's not like we use them together, but we use the asymmetric encryption to send the key for symmetric encryption. You need to use asymmetric encryption to negotiate the key for symmetric encryption. Yeah, that's right. After the server has delivered the correct public key, you use symmetric encryption to encrypt the data. This is partly right. For here, it's the web browser delivers the public key. So the session key is sent by the client, not the server. Number 3, encryption encrypts a message the same length as the original, but a message digest encrypts the original message into a random amount of letters, but encrypts it with a pattern too. For the message digest, it has a fixed length as well. It's like usually shorter than the original message, but even if the message is 1 letter long, it is also a fixed length. If it's 3 pages, it's also a fixed length, so it's not random. Number 4, we use both symmetric and asymmetric encryption for different parts of the communication. You can see the beginning of the video. Next is Dylan's. So you found x equals 53 and y equals -15 for the solution. That's correct. And you also checked it with 2 ways. That's awesome. Usually we write it as x equals 53, y equals -15, or x1 and y1 instead of x0 and y0, because we already have an x0 and y0 here. So we used something else. Apart from that, well done. Next is Vincent's, number 12. Number 1 and number 2 are correct. For number 3, you missed the keyword multiplicative function. So because it's a multiplicative function, phi because it's a multiplicative function, phi 17 times phi 3 equals phi 17 times 3. So the multiplicative function lets it split up. You can also watch the marking video for meeting 12 where I explain it more thoroughly. But yeah, it's because phi is a multiplicative function. So this is the same as the other one. And I marked this one. For number 13, the answer is wrong because you flipped x and y. So it should be 17 times x plus 60 times y equals 1. But you did 17 times y plus 60 times x equals 1. So if you flip these two, x equals negative 127 and y equals 36 is one of the solutions. But we wanted a positive solution for x, so that wouldn't work either. So for some of the possibilities, you could say x equals 53 and y equals negative 15, or when t equals 2, x equals 113 and y equals negative 32. That's it for all of the marking, and this is the last video too. So thank you for taking my class, and I really enjoyed helping you guys. I hope you learned something.